heard that so many times. So that's true. We do learn some of the conflict resolution skills from people around us, parents, but how effective are they? At the end of the day, and as you use their conflict resolution skills that they taught you, how satisfied are you after the conflict? How many people say 100% satisfied? Nobody. 50% satisfied. Still, 10% satisfied. It's not satisfying at all. How many people? It's not working. Whatever you learned from your parents, from your friends is not working. How many people raise their hands and say, agree? So none of what I just mentioned you guys agree to. So what is it then? I'm sorry? Right, but some nodded yes, that they learned some skills of conflict resolution from parents, from friends. How is that working? Is that, I mean, after you resolve the conflict, afterwards, are you 100% satisfied? 90%? I'm sorry? There's an aftertaste. So that makes it what? 10% satisfied? 50% satisfied? More like 50? Yeah, so I wouldn't say that's effective way to resolve conflicts, because if you call it you resolve the conflict, then there is no aftertaste. It has to be 100% clear in the heart, in the mouth, in the head, in every part of our senses. So therefore, when we say conflict resolution skills, we're talking about effective conflict resolution skills that at the end of resolution you feel nothing in your heart, there's no negative emotions, there's no aftertaste, like the sister mentioned. So that's about who taught us how to resolve conflicts. Now, why even bother learning how to resolve conflicts? Why bother learning the skills of is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you get rewarded for that. But what do you get other than rewards in yourself? To help the society. To help the society be what? To help the society to be what? In harmony. Very good. Very good. So you looked at the big picture. So we learn the skills of conflicts because it helps us resolve conflicts with the spouse, with children, with parents, relatives, friends, work, community, for the purpose of harmony. Harmony within the community or harmony within yourself? Which one? I have a lot of questions. So expect me to ask all. Harmony within the self and harmony within the community. Okay, I'll take that. That's a really good answer. So here is so in response to the brother's comment earlier, because it's the Prophet, it's the Sunnah, it's the teachings of the Prophet to resolve these conflicts. The Prophet ﷺ in the hadith narrated, it's in Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi. The Prophet ﷺ, should I not tell you something that is better than fasting and prayer and charity? He said, reconcile. Reconcile in a case of conflict. So when we say conflict resolution, we are saying reconcile. We need to focus on, when we resolve a conflict, we need to focus on reconciliation. So the Prophet ﷺ said reconciling is better than the prayers, the fasting, and the charity. Some scholars, they say this is the voluntarily prayers, but the Prophet ﷺ didn't specify one way or another, but it's the scholar's opinion. And he said because of conflicts, or not resolving conflicts, or having these conflicts, it's the shaver. The Prophet ﷺ, he described these conflicts as the shaver. Shaver of what? Shaver of hair? No. Shaver of beard? No. It's the shaver of religion, your deen. Because the deen is what? In Arabic, with what is the terminology? The deen is ibadah. He said ibadah. Okay, deen is ibadah. And there is another thing that is relating deen to relationship. Deen is what? Deen is al-mu'amala. Deen is the interactions we have with people. That's our deen. If our interaction is full of conflicts, then our deen is not there. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ here is mentioning that reconciliation, reconciling with the people around you, what we mentioned before. Could be a spouse, could be a neighbor, could be someone at work. And he said this reconciliation is better than salah, better than the prayer, better than charity, better than fasting. You find people who fast Mondays and Thursdays, they really, really stick to it. And they pray. They pray every, voluntarily prayer after the mandatory prayers. And they don't leave any of that. But their relationship is really, or their life is full of conflicts. They have a lot of conflicts with many people that is not resolved. And here is an example. Conflict, some people tend to think of conflict as something that you've done me wrong. And let me give a little thought here. If I did wrong to you, for example, we were waiting in line and I was looking around and I'm moving and I stepped on the foot of the person behind me in line. Now the person behind me is upset. He's in pain. He's screaming. He's yelling at me. And then I say, and he's starting to call me names. That's what I was trying to say. He started to call me names. He started to be very, very inappropriate with me. And then I just don't talk to him. I say, you know what? I forgive you. And I walk away. How is that? What do you think of how I resolved that conflict? Is that a good way to solve it, to resolve it? Yes or no? How many people say yes? Thank you. How many else? Who else says yes? You don't know? Okay, I'll repeat the question. Was it not clear? The example is clear. Okay. So I stepped on his toe, and he's starting screaming and yelling at me, calling me names, and he made a scene. He embarrassed me in front of everybody, and I felt like he was, attacking me. And I say, I forgive you. And I just walk away. What do you think? And I just don't say anything about it. Think about that. We'll talk more about that in a short while. So what is a conflict? We want to resolve a conflict, we need to know what it is. How do we define a conflict? What's a conflict? Argument between two people or between the self. I mean, we can have conflicts within ourselves, but that's a different session, different talk. Problem, having a problem. Yeah? What else could that be? I'm sorry? Contradiction. Okay. All these are the obvious answers or the obvious decision or the obvious definition of conflict. But I would like us from now on to think of conflicts a bit differently. When you see a conflict, I would like you to define conflict as follows. It's an opportunity to reconcile. We need to change our mindset on that. We need to see conflicts as an opportunity to reconcile. Because conflicts really happen because of differences. And these differences amongst us, as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of differences between us. So what are some of the conflicts that we deal with? What causes conflicts in our lives? I have a list of, 10, 15 here. Financial. So these are all external. There's external causes and there are internal causes. The external causes, financial, incompatibility, jealousy, social environment, relatives, friends, people at work, yada yada. Behavior traits, other people's behavior doesn't really match and jive with what I think is the appropriate traits that a person should have. Communications, inflexibility, different visions, different interests, different priorities. Time management. Time management here in reference to where I want to spend my time as opposed to where do you want to spend your time. Like a family would like the husband to be around, but the husband wants to spend time with his friends, drinking Teh Tarik, watching soccer games until 4 o'clock in the morning. But the family wants him to be at home and he's outside. So that's time management. Children, raising children, working and dealing with children, there's a lot of conflicts or opportunities for conflicts there. Opportunity for reconciliation, but possibilities of conflicts. And there's also the problem of conflicts that is always known to us is the polygamy. It's another issue. And there are many I've seen few brothers spoke to me about the problem in polygamy in their marriage, and they're not even considering it. The wife is concerned or anxious about this, possibility of polygamy. So their marriage is a bit challenged or having difficulties in their marriage because of the anxiety of the wife, and I have like 4 or even 5 cases like that. So the areas of, so these are all, I mean there's more that we can say about causes of conflicts that is external. Could be from friends from school, could be siblings within each other, that could be also under the social environment as well. So another common thing that I've noticed in family sessions that is, well, I had a couple of cases that the wife or the husband want to divorce, and their reason is because they're not compatible. And I feel that is a false reason, to be honest, because we are all incompatible. But we choose to be compatible to whomever we want. We choose to be compatible with so many difficult people in our lives, but when it comes down to husband and wife, they choose to, you know what, let's have a divorce. But they don't work on that quote-unquote incompatibility between them. Another thing, inflexibility. Always the one person who's complaining about the relationship, he's claiming or he accuses the other person they're not being flexible. Well, how flexible are you? It's like, why do I need to be flexible? I'm right. The other person is wrong. And not looking at the bigger picture, and that's why these are the cases where it's all external related. The children, raising the children dealing with each other, the children problems. How do you deal with it and how to fix it is always areas of conflicts. So here is a rule. So once in a while I'm going to mention a rule. The rule is, and this is from the Sunnah, this is from the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The more diverse the marriage is, the stronger and bigger it can become. So this is an opportunity to have a stronger marriage if your marriage is diverse or having quote-unquote incompatibility. But if you're really willing to take the initiative and do something about it. The most diverse the marriage is, the stronger and bigger it can become. Anybody has any thoughts on that? Anybody agrees or disagrees to that comment? Anybody wants me to spend more time on this, explaining it? You want me to spend more time on it? You would like me to spend more time explaining it? Yes. So the Prophet in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we created you, nations and tribes, to know one another. And the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, I don't know the exact words, but he did encourage marrying from the outside, from outside the tribe, from outside the family. And the Prophet ﷺ himself, he married a lot. He married, Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. They were from different parts of the world, even not just Arabia. So diversity brings different types of perspective. If you really have the right mindset, you will use that as an opportunity to grow and get stronger. Is that sufficient? Would you like me to spend more time? It's good. Anybody has any questions or not understanding that rule? Yes, sister. Yeah, so the question is, do you go out of your way to establish that diversity? It's really up to you. If that's what you like, then go for it. But if that's something that you don't know how to handle, and you don't, you don't have the skills on how to work with diverse spouse or diverse relationship, then maybe it's not good. It's maybe not a good idea. But if you have that kind of mindset and you believe in this, you can learn how to do that. And maybe during the engagement, if this is marriage, then during the engagement you get to know how to work with this kind of differences, you and the spouse, or the child and and the spouse of the child, or me as a friend, making a friend in a, travel somewhere around the world, and I made friendship with someone. It's really up to me to flourish that relationship and make that friendship stronger and make it longer. Or I can just say, you know what, you're from that kind of culture, I don't know, I don't want to, excuse me, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. I feel like I don't want to really, I don't like your culture. I don't, you don't see the opportunity from really learning from other people's perspective. Does that help answer the? Okay. Any other concerns or not clear? The idea here is not clear. If anything comes up on this, inshallah, you can write a question. I'm more than happy to discuss it further later. So the other causes of conflict is internal, and this is really interesting. I hope that you guys, we can spend some time on that as well, inshallah. I hope you guys see this also beneficial. Pride versus dignity. Internally, we have a there's a conflict from external. How does that external conflict impact us inside? Do we react out of pride or do we react out of dignity? I'll talk more about pride and dignity because they're totally different things. Another things, being struggle or having peace. Having struggle within the self or having peace. So this external conflict that came and impacted me is not causing me struggle inside. Am I struggling with the feelings? Am I struggling with the thoughts? And if you guys saw the last talk I did here was about how to control anger. And anger comes from a thought. First we think, and then we have that feeling of anger or feeling of something that causes anger. So this struggle could be a thought, or what did you just call me? You just stepped on my toe and I'm getting angry with you. And so then, or do I want to use this conflict to achieve peace? Or I have peace inside me and this conflict comes in and then I deal with it also peacefully. So if there is if there is internal struggle within the self, or this conflict causes struggle within the self, the behavior or the response is going to reflect that, what's inside. Also jealousy and contentment. If somebody's jealous inside, worried about what they don't have, and worried about how people get what he likes or she likes, but he's not getting it, when there is an external conflict happens, his friend or his neighbor got a raise, and he doesn't work as hard as he does or she does. And if he has that jealousy inside him, the impact or the reaction of the external cause, it'll cause that the reaction will reflect based on what's inside. If he was content with what he has or what she has, then the reaction will also reflect that contentment. And there's a difference between pride and dignity, or struggle and peace, and jealousy and contentment, versus jealousy and being in denial, struggle and being in denial, having pride but you are in denial that you have pride. So there's a difference between that. People might have pride inside, but their pride is preventing them from admitting that they have pride. So therefore they're convincing themselves, oh, that's not pride, that's dignity. Well, I'm going to talk about the pride and dignity and understand what each one means. Egocentric or benevolent. So egocentric is what? Me, 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 me. Being benevolent is giving the other. Look at the other. So if it's me, 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 and I have a conflict, then I always focus on how that conflict is impacting me. When I gave that example earlier, when I step on that person's toe and he started to yell at me, calling me names, and I was like, I forgive you, and I walk away. I'm only focusing on me, on how he was calling me names, and how he was yelling at me, and how he was embarrassing me in front of the, whatever shop or bank or whatever it is that I'm waiting in line with, or waiting in line in. So I'm focusing on how he impacted me, and then I say, oh, I forgive you, and I walk away. I didn't think for a second that I really stepped on his toe. Maybe I broke his toe, and this guy is going to be in pain after I leave. Even though I forgive him, he doesn't like me. He still has a problem with me. And people think because people think in that situation, because I forgave him, then I'm okay. Right? And they expect the other person to forgive. But we cannot expect that, because that is external. We have no control over that. So if you want to resolve and reconcile, then we need to make sure both sides are clear on it, not just you. You being clear on it is not going to be enough. Why is that important? Because you are carrying a brand. You are carrying a brand. Yourself is one brand. Your community, your background, your ethnicity, your religion, each one of these is a brand. If you did that and you're like, I forgive you, and you walk away, in your mind, in your heart, you feel like it's clear. I'm 100% clear with this person, but this person is left with the leftovers that you caused for him or her, and they would put that brand of you, associating it with being inconsiderate, insensitive, careless, and mean. And they package all that together. I don't know if you guys seen they talk about creating memories. We have a part in our mind called the amygdala, and the amygdala is the memory where it stores the emotions. It stores the emotion with the event. And how many times we recall an event and we remember the emotion? These are two different parts of the memory, or two different parts of the brain that store that in the memory. So the amygdala takes the event, wraps it with the emotion, and puts it in memory. That's the amygdala's job. So for that person who was behind me, who I stepped on his toe or her toe, the amygdala is going to wrap that, the whole event, with positive emotion? Not likely. Negative emotion. And it's going to store it, and it's going to make the association with that person, whatever brand, whatever they look, whatever, the race that they look like to be, and then they will use that to generalize. So I impacted the person behind me. I forgave him, or I forgave her for yelling at me, but I never discussed the conflict. What caused that person to react that way? I did. I caused it, but I never discussed that. I never addressed it. So the outcome of that is still resonating with that person, and it's impacting everyone in his life that may look like me, that have a brand or any kind of brand that I carry, and he will associate that to this. And then I'm not only impacting him, but I'm also impacting him and everybody that looks like me or acts like me or has a similar brand as I do. So how often we need to so this was the what causes this is the external part. And if we were to talk about the external I'm sorry, that was the internal part. And if we were to talk about the internal part, we need to look at the bigger picture. And we need to have a balance between the internal and the external. We need to be able to manage how external causes of conflicts impacts us internally and how we react. How do we behave on that? So this is the focus on the talk today. So we need to keep a balance. So how much of each of these statements we need to focus on? Do we need to so how many times, let's get a percentage. How much percentage we need to say, oh, this is not a big deal. Let's not make a big deal out of it. Let's let it go. Versus, let's invest in this. Let's build a stronger foundation for this relationship and grow it. So how much do you think, if you were to put a balance between two? They need to add to 100%. What do you think? How do you break the 100% on these two possibilities? A person, I stepped on the person behind me on his toe or her toe. They gave me that reaction. I can say, oh, let's not make a big deal. Just apologize and walk away. Or I take initiative, or I take the steps to take that opportunity to build a stronger relationship with that person, to give a positive impact on that event. What are the chances? What should I do? How would I consider these two options? Let it go? Don't make a big deal because this is a public place? Or should I say, let's take it and build on it? So how often do I need to do each one? Is it 50-50? Is it 10-90? 40-60? What do you think? $50-50. So sometimes I do it this way, sometimes I do it that way. Any other thoughts? Any other feedback or comments? Everybody wants to do it 50-50? What do you want to do? The later one is? Oh, the second one 100%. Okay. Okay, that's an opinion. Depends on the situation. So, okay, so based on the situation, then you would decide. Sometimes you would do that. So that sounds like about 50-50 also, depending on the situation. Okay, what other thoughts? Any other thoughts? Okay, I kind of agree to his. And that's relating to one of the other talks I've done here before. It's called delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is in relation to I suffer now, I pay the price now for a greater outcome in the future. We do this in school. We did that in school a lot, and all kids do it in school. So they stay up late nights and they work hard, and at the end they pass the exam or they get good results. But then after that they forget that. After the school over, after they graduate, they kind of forget that. But actually this is a good behavior that we need to teach our kids. The other day my son wanted a snack, and somehow the snack needed to be like chocolate related. So I told him, do you want to have chocolate now, or you can have 2 chocolates after we eat lunch? He said, can I have 3? I said, no, the deal is either 1 now or 2 later. And he said, I'll take 2 later. And that was it. He never mentioned, because he kept mentioning, oh, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And we were like in the freeway, so we had to pull over for the gas station. So we made a deal. So he was happy to suffer a little bit from the hunger to for delayed gratification to get 2 chocolates afterwards. So it's very true, and we need to focus in every opportunity for reconciliation, which is conflict. We need to always focus on building that relationship for the future. We need to make that relationship stronger for the future. We can't think of now and, that's it. This is an opportunity for future growth and future strength. So we said earlier what causes it, what causes conflicts, why do we need to learn. Oh, where did it go? Yeah, what causes conflicts? So when these conflicts come, external or internal, where is it exactly that conflicts come from? If there's an external event happens, the conflict is really within the feeling, is how we feel. It starts with a thought, and then the feelings kind of exacerbate the thought, and it becomes stronger because the feeling is stronger than the thought. Just a fact. So these feelings tend to make us really, react depending on how we feel. So if we have no conflicts in the feelings, then we should be able to, or if we resolve the feeling, we should be able to resolve the conflict. Because if that's why we have conflicts, or that's the root, that's where the source of conflicts come because of these feelings, then we need to address the feelings. When the husband and wife argue, what are they arguing about? What are they really arguing about? About the issue or how that issue impacted them? When the person behind me was yelling and screaming in the example I gave, it didn't happen, by the way, it was just an example. When the example I gave, the person I stepped on his toe and he's yelling and screaming, he was feeling painful, or was he not? And that painful made him angry, so he felt angry. And I never addressed that, right? So if I never addressed that, then that feeling's still there. And then the conflict is there. Even though I forgave him, but then he still has that unresolved conflict with me. So therefore, this cycle of feeling, or hurt, I call it, a cycle of hurt. So it starts with, I'm hurt. That's how it starts. And if I'm hurt, then I hurt you. And you're thinking, you hurt me, then I'm going to hurt you back. And this is what happens in many relationships. And you're saying, oh, you're hurting me. Well, you hurt me more. I'm going to hurt you even more. And this cycle goes on, and the hurting continues to grow even further. This might not happen in a moment. It could happen over a day. Could happen over a month or a year or years. This hurting back and forth builds up out of one conflict that they both didn't sit down and talk about it. So if somebody's hurt, how do we know that they're hurt? They react. Right. The example I gave, I stepped on the person behind me. Maybe I broke his toe, but I didn't feel it because my heels were like, the shoes of the heels are big. I didn't feel anything that I stepped on, and he was barefooted. And I may have broken his toe. I didn't feel it. I didn't know what I did. His reaction to me made me feel, or made me aware of something went wrong. And if something went wrong, you have to keep in mind it's the feeling of the person you need to address. It's not what I did. It's the feeling. We need to address the feeling. Saying sorry and walk away is not going to do it. Saying I forgive you and walk away is not going to do it. So therefore, in order for us to break this cycle, we need to address it here, because that's where the conflict comes. If it's not addressed at this point, the conflict will continue to grow. So therefore, you have someone in your relationship, in your circle, was hurt, and they reacted irrationally. Don't react back. Understand what's going on. Address the feeling. Any questions or thoughts on that? Clear? Okay, alhamdulillah. Another rule. Those who need the love the most, they deserve it the least. This is a rule. You need to keep it, in your mind, or take a note of that. What am I talking about here? Those who need the love the most, they deserve it the least. You want me to spend more time on this? Yeah? Okay. Let's go back to this cycle. A person is hurt, so they come and hurt me. I'm not talking about where did that hurt come from. That's besides the point. So they come and hurt me. And I feel like, why? I need your love. Why are you hurting me? So I hurt you back. Because I'm expecting love. I'm not expecting hurt. But you're hurting me. So you're hurting me, like for example, a child. I mean, it's a really a child of, or an immature person, if you want to say. When we were children, all we needed is what we want. Who cares about the other kid, whether he has a toy or not? I want that toy. Or a child wants the other boy's toy. I don't care what happens to him not having his toy, but I want that toy. It's about what I want. If the father or the mother are on the phone, they need love, they need the attention. They come and interrupt you because they don't know any better. Especially the children 3 years old, 4 years old. They don't know. They come and they want your attention. They interrupt you. It's always about them. That's their natural. That's natural in that stage of development in our lives. But if a person, an adult, acts that way, then there's something wrong. If they want that love, then they deserve it the least at a later stage in their lives, like an adult. If they are careless about other people's private time or time, or their needs, other people's needs, and they just don't care about their needs, they just care about their own needs, don't care about other people's needs, and it's always about them, me. That's the egocentric we talked about earlier. No, not being caring, not being giving, so always about me. So if I am in need of that love, if I need that love, then I deserve it the least. That means there's something wrong. There's something wrong, and therefore I do need have that love in order for me to feel complete. But actually, what you need to what that person needs to focus on, instead of focusing on needing love, they need to have the contentment. They need to have internal peace within themselves, and which goes to the internal conflicts we talked about earlier, the list. They need to be giving instead of expecting. They need to give the love instead of. So if somebody is at a later stage in their lives and they are expecting love from others and they're not giving any, or even if they are, but they just want more of that other people's love, then there's something there. There's an issue there that needs to be addressed. So then, if you hurt me, then I'm gonna hurt you back because you're not giving me love, and the cycle goes on and on. And then this person would also fall into the same trap, because they need the love, because they're hurt, and my husband is not listening to me, or my wife is not listening to me, so I'm going to hurt her back, I'm going to hurt her even more, and goes on and on. So this, at this point, this person needs the love most, and at this point, this person needs the love most. So if they need that love and they're expecting it, then that would make them basically least deserving for that love. So as I pointed earlier, this is the first point of conflict, but this is another point of conflict. The same person can also try to fix the conflict at this end, at this point right here, when they're hurt again, or they're not listened again. If they hurt and they're hurt back, it's their chance to reflect on what they're doing and how they're impacting and how they're reacting on their feelings, and how their feelings is impacting the other person in their relationship. So what causes hurt? What causes the feeling of being hurt? So it could be something we did, intentionally or unintentionally, and somebody's reaction to us is telling us that there's something went wrong. And that something went wrong, it had to be something with me. And what I did was something that I made them feel bad. Hurt. Hurt can come with feeling not being listened to or heard. Feeling pushed aside, ignored. Feeling violated. Feeling of humiliation or degradation. His dignity or her dignity is under attack. Not pride, we're talking here. Pride wouldn't qualify for hurt, because pride is a problem. We need to fix the problem of pride, and we need to replace pride with dignity. Dignity is something that we want to flourish. Pride we need to have less of. So here I'm not saying not being heard. I'm saying feeling not being heard. And we see this a lot with children. When children they don't feel being heard, they react. They overreact. And I mentioned an example of you're on the most important call of your life. Maybe you're getting a raise, you're getting an interview for a better job, whatever the call might be. It's like you've been waiting for it. And you're on the phone, and your child comes and interrupts you. How do you feel? What are you thinking? And how would you react? Not a pleasant thing. I mean, I don't know if anybody's really putting themselves in that situation. Probably you're not feeling really good if you're interrupted in a very, very important call. So your child feels not being heard, and therefore, and therefore they react. And they don't just react, they overact, they overreact, they throw a tantrum. And you're like expecting the child to understand that you're on a call, you're not supposed to be interrupted. But if you put the person on hold for a second and you give the attention to the child and tell them, I'm in a very important call, I'll get back to you. And then maybe they're still acting up, like, I don't know, it's like, I really would like to, I would love to do this with you. I want to spend time with you. Can you wait another 5 minutes? Let me finish the call. Have that conversation, have that contact with the child, or with the other person that you are dealing with that relationship with, in that relationship you're with. And again, it's not being pushed aside, it's feeling pushed aside. Sometimes we do this unintentionally. Somebody's talking, it's like, you know what, I just thought of an idea, and you're interrupting them. And if you're like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I see this a lot at work, or I saw that a lot at work. People stop talking and contributing because they feel that they're pushed aside or they're not heard. Whatever they say, nobody's recognizing what they're saying. Feeling violated could be anything. Could be privacy, could be feeling, denial. It's like somebody, and it's really interesting how in relationships, I get to hear this a lot. One person tells the other, is like, don't feel that way. You can't. I mean, that's not a reasonable expectation. You can't tell people how to feel or what to feel and when to feel it. When a person feels that way, I mean, the example I gave, I stepped on the person's foot and like, don't feel pain. I mean, you don't need to feel painful. It wasn't that big of a deal. I barely touched your toe. I didn't feel me touching your toe. It's not a big deal. Why you were in pain? So telling the person what to feel, you shouldn't feel that way. It's not gonna resolve the conflict. You're not addressing the feeling. You are really violating their sense of feeling. You're really making them confused. Like, oh, why am I feeling that way? So I might not be able to finish all the topics here, but I know that I'll have a talk again next week, I think, or something like that. I can continue with the talk. Then let me confirm that. So I'll talk a little bit about pride and dignity. And I'm going to close with that, honestly, because this is going to be I know I have another session on next Sunday or the Sunday before, but I will conclude the talk by then, inshallah. So pride feeds self-image, and we don't want pride. Dignity nurtures the self. It's a positive energy that we have when we have dignity. Pride pumps up superiority, and dignity. You can be humble. You can be humility. With humility, with gratitude, you can still have your dignity. The Prophet ﷺ, in many occasions, and one of them is when a child came and took him from the hand, and she pulled him, and she just took him around, and he was just following a girl, a little girl around the streets of I think it was Medina, if I remember correctly. So if you were to do this to someone, an elderly person, a child would do that, how many people would jump and criticize that child's behavior? How would that older person, man or lady, grandma or grandpa, would feel if her grandchild or great-grandchild took her from the hand or took him from the hand and walked him around the house? And some people they'd feel insulted. They'd feel awkward about that. They feel humiliated. So if they feel uncomfortable with that humility, then that's because of pride. But if they feel comfortable with that humility, then they have dignity to focus on. And that's the internal things, the checks and balances that we need to always ask ourselves. What is causing me to feel this way? Why am I not comfortable when this child interrupted me? If your answer is because he's young and I'm old, he doesn't have respect for me, that is very likely coming from pride. And you need to shun yourself and X that feeling or X that thought, and you need to have a new thought that will generate a better feeling, because you need to see it from the child's point of view. Pride depends on external, the list of external things that we talked about. All these causes of conflicts has to do with pride. And the causes of conflicts that we talked about earlier, about the internal, all of those coming from dignity. We talked about pride and dignity. We talked about jealousy and contentment. Contentment comes from dignity, right? How many people beg others or beg their boss for an extra pay, and they just lose their dignity, but their pride, they need to have that better car. They need to look much nicer, or whatever the case might be, because of the pride is pushing them to do that. they will humiliate themselves for their pride. So they don't, they're not focusing on building that dignity with themselves. So I'm going to stop here. Any questions or answers or comments? I'm more than happy to address. We didn't get to the steps on how to resolve conflicts. If I were to, so let me go quickly on the steps. First, you need to stop with yourself. Take initiative. Be the person to start resolving the conflict. Don't expect the others. Don't blame the others. Start with yourself. Make the first move. The next step, seek courage. So that is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, for guidance, for wisdom, steadfastness to the truth, because many times we fool ourselves in believing things that are not true, and only us know that. And if we are truthful to ourselves, then the chances of resolving that conflict is very high, and there is no aftertaste after that. I can guarantee you that. We need to be truthful to ourselves. So therefore, the step 2 is seeking courage from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also seek help from those who have the knowledge. Amongst people around you, people you heard about, you can reach out and ask them for help. So that's seeking courage, because being the first to address the conflict takes a lot of courage. Because I mentioned in the slides earlier about fear, and fear is tackled by being courageous. I'll talk more about this next time. The third step is to do preparation. Don't just go ahead and jump into it, try to resolve the problem. Plan, prepare for it. Number 4, then you take actions. Then you sit down, you talk, you discuss the problem, you talk about reconciliation. You focus on reconciliation. So that's this is focusing on reconciliation. And this number 6 is you think of solutions. You start putting the solutions at the end. Many people start with solutions. Solutions don't come at the beginning. They become naturally as an outcome of the process of addressing conflicts. And number 7, a lot of people don't address, is to follow up. You need to follow up that solutions that you thought or you co-created with your family, with the person that you have a problem with. You need to follow up. Is there anything that else we can do? Is that been working? Whatever, you just need to really kind of touch bases again, maybe at least once after you resolve the conflict. That will ensure that aftertaste will never ever appear again for that conflict. So I'm going to just stop here and wait for any questions or answers. Any questions or answers? Answers to questions within yourself that you asked yourself and you came to a realization, or any comments? Was it that clear? Yes. Alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. Do we have a microphone? No, never mind. Yes. Amongst the complex, I'm sorry? The causes of conflicts, please. Yeah.
Do you think injustice cannot be among them? I just think.
What would be among them, sorry?
Injustice.
Injustice would be among them.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, probably if there is injustice between maybe a follower and a ruler, maybe a certain stage can be reached whereby the followers may likely cannot continue without, trying to show to the ruler that really they have not been feeling fine based on what he has been doing to them.
Yeah.
Or maybe even injustice between two individuals.
Yeah, you need to be careful. As I mentioned, in the first step is when you take initiative. You need to take the initiative. You don't blame. If you're saying the ruler this, the ruler that, the government this, the government that, you're blaming them. What are you doing? take initiative. They're not really thinking about you. Maybe they don't even know that you exist. But what is it that you're doing? How are you letting that incident impacting you? Their decision, how are you allowing their decision impacting you makes a big difference. I've seen a lot of people have conspiracy theories, government shortcoming, rulers' injustice, all these things. But they're not addressing within themselves, being content, giving, being benevolent, on other people's shortcoming. As I mentioned, conflicts always exist, whether it's between public and government or between people and themselves. But always, we need to be always clear on our side. We don't want to blame anybody else. We cannot control that. We don't know their limitations. We don't know their strategy, right? Because we assumed that they're in that category and therefore it's their fault. But we cannot do that. That would be unhealthy relationship, right? John F. Kennedy said it back in the 60s. Ask not what the government can do. Nobody knows that? Ask not what the government can do for you, but what can you do for, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That mentality it looks at the conflict from a different angle. It's a more positive and rewarding way to look at things, regardless if it's injustice or not. How are we allowing it to impact us? Any other questions? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have second question.
Sure.
Assuming a younger person.
I'm sorry?
A younger person.
A younger person, yes.
A younger person have seen two individuals of maybe elderly, two elderly persons, but how do you think he can approach in order to resolve a conflict he noticed between two of them?
A younger person is trying to resolve a conflict between two older people?
Yes. Any guide, because he's not of the same age group with them. Is it going to be possible, and any guide on that?
So the elderly people who have a conflict.
Yes, and maybe he's
an external person who is younger than them. So what's the issue there?
I'm just trying to understand. Is it possible?
It is possible. It just depends on.
He's passing by and he noticed they have some argument.
Oh, okay.
And he's trying to.
If people you don't know.
Yeah, he don't know.
Okay, if you don't know, unless they ask for your help, don't get in the middle of the conversation. That's my recommendation. Wait until it's over, and you can talk to them separately. You can talk to them. It's a different, because they're fueled, and they will take their fuel on you. They both will be charged on you. So you don't want to get that, all that negative, and then they will just point it at you, and it's like, it's none of your business, because they're not thinking at their best, it's not their best time to talk to them. And you're a stranger, like, what is it to you? We always talk like this. So you'll end up being the bad person. So again, first you seek wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I mentioned before. First step is when you take the initiative. After you take the initiative, the second thing is to seek help. Seeking help. It could be you're not the right person to resolve. So you can seek someone else's help to resolve it. And that could be how you can contribute to that conflict. Wa iyaakum. Any other questions or comments? Okay, جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.